Welcome back to Jurassic Park Minute. Jurassic Park Minute is a fan podcast that chronicles and overanalyzes the classic 1993 film Jurassic Park minute by minute. But today we're doing something a little bit different, aren't we, Brady?
That's right.
This is going to be like kind of a bonus early dropping episode for Jurassic Park Minute to kind of, I don't know if this is really going to give an idea of what the format of this show is going to be like to our listeners, but it's going to be something that's just fun, right?
Yeah, just getting in here and letting loose and recording something that's outside of the traditional Movies by Minutes format.
Yeah, we wanted to take this opportunity to talk about Westworld because it has a connection to Jurassic Park in a few ways, but we also watched the pilot the other night. Oh, and I meant to tell you, the second episode is now out to watch as well.
Really?
So we got to watch that also because...
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, just to go ahead and spoil it up front, I thought it was fantastic.
Yes, it was awesome.
I really loved it, and of course, we wanted to get in here and kind of talk about it because it'd strike while the iron's hot, you know, and throw out a little bit of a bonus episode to our Jurassic Park Minute listeners because we said we were going to do that.
Yeah.
And
let's talk a little bit about the why Westworld on this podcast. What's the connection?
So Westworld was originally written and directed by Michael Chriton, the author of Jurassic Park.
The original movie.
Yes, back in the 70s, the one with Yul Brynner. And I have not seen that movie. Have you?
No, I never have.
No, Michael Chriton directed a few movies. He did The Great Train Robbery, Westworld, and then I don't think he did Beyond Westworld.
Did you see Runaway?
Yes, I loved
Yeah.
Runaway.
It's awesome.
For some reason, when we were kids, Runaway was like on HBO all the time. For some reason, Runaway was always playing on there. I remember watching it like several times, and it was really weird because the character's name on it, played by Tom Selleck, had the last name of Ramsey, and I can't remember his first name, but the character that Hulk Hogan played in Suburban Commando's name was Shep Ramsey, and I always got those two confused, and I thought for some reason there was like the Shep Ramsey character in Suburban Commando was like a reference to Runaway, but Runaway's a movie that I liked, but it's pretty weird. It's about a future where people have little robots that help them with household utilities, right? Like little spider robots, and probably so basically the precursor to the Roomba is going around your house.
Yeah.
But then it can also grab a gun and shoot you. Mm-hmm. And there's special kind of like almost Blade Runner type cops that deal with deactivating these robots, and Tom Selleck plays one. And I think Gene Simmons from Kiss was the bad guy who was programming all these little spider robots to shoot acid on people.
Is it on Netflix?
I don't think that it is. I know that How Did This Get Made did a episode about it a couple years ago or last year. But I remember liking it but thinking it was kind of dumb and everything. So Michael Chriton is a guy who is... maybe a better author than a director. I didn't see Westworld, the original one, but I've heard some good things about it. It's got some great concepts of it, but it's possible that when he was writing Jurassic Park, he kind of used Westworld as a jumping off point for that idea.
So yeah, one of the connections is that it's very similar to Jurassic Park in the sense that Westworld is like a man-made created environment that guests can go to and have this experience that they could never have.
Yeah.
And, of course, it ends up going kind of haywire.
As they do.
Yeah.
And, Fantasy Island with robots.
Yeah, exactly. And I had like seen the trailers for it and heard a very little bit about Westworld and got nothing from the trailer. I got absolutely nothing except the fact that Jonathan Nolan was behind it, and I really like his work.
Yeah. Did you know that it was like a Western type thing or a sci-fi?
I mean, obviously from the trailer it shows you that it's both of those things, but it gave me no sense of story or anything. I couldn't tell if there was a main character or anything like that. So I went into this completely blind and loved it.
Yeah.
And I think that was the best way for me to go into this.
Yeah. I knew the general conceit of that, it was a Western world where these robots, a fantasy island situation, like I said, the general kind of concept of everything. But I figured that, stretched out over 10 hours instead of an hour and a half, as the movie was, they're going to have to go into some other topics. And it looks like they're going into some philosophies on what is the nature of consciousness, like science versus faith type stuff. And, have created what appears to be a pretty deep mythology of this park. So now I'm saying this ahead of time, hoping that's how the situation turns out. With a lot of HBO shows, the first couple of episodes are great, and then it kind of starts to drop off and maybe doesn't really fulfill the promise of its pilot. But for this first episode, I thought it was fantastic. It's such a sense of mystery of what's going on. Some great action sequences, some amazing performances. The cast for this thing is huge.
Ed Harris is just ruthless.
Ed Harris is in it, and then also our buddy Louis Herthum.
Yeah, Louis Herthum is an actor from our hometown. Really nice guy.
He did a fantastic job. So if you haven't seen Westworld, I'm going to go ahead and tell you to maybe stop. And I think it's available if you don't have access to HBO Go or HBO Now or HBO. I think that it is up online somewhere for you to watch for free. Now, I can't confirm that, and we'll try to look that up and maybe put it in the show notes. But
yeah, before we get further into the review, definitely go check it out because we're going to be spoiling it.
Yeah, and I do suggest that you watch it, especially especially if you're a fan of Jurassic Park, because this was like Jurassic Park's like a surface level action driven thing with some philosophy. It's like Frankenstein's monster, right? Westworld apparently looks like it's going into a lot deeper territory with the nature of consciousness, the nature of reality, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to really delve into, and I really hope the show does that. But this was like, so you haven't seen? You saw the pilot episode or the first episode of True Detective, right?
No, I have still not seen. Yeah, no, I did see. I did see the first episode. Yeah.
So True Detective was an HBO show that I felt continued its quality throughout the line. I loved the first 2 seasons of True Blood. Didn't really enjoy it after, where it went in some places that I didn't really like. So I'm hoping that this HBO show keeps up the consistency. But right off the bat, this episode is really tackling some big ideas, and I think that it seems like it can go like Jurassic Park in the Frankenstein's monster territory. It looks like it's going to also cross over into some Blade Runner and Terminator type stuff too.
Yeah, and that's one thing I really liked about it was like this idea is about as science fiction as it gets, but it wasn't overly sci-fi in the general sense of like ray guns and things like that that I usually generally associate with science fiction. Or it wasn't overly Western in the sense that not everybody was talking like this, man.
Right.
And spitting into spittoons and everything. So
wouldn't that be great if they did though?
Yeah, right. And anything. But that's another thing too that I've always loved about Jurassic Park is the fact that it is very science fiction, but not the traditional Star Trek sense of sci-fi,
right,
of that term. So that's something
It
really
took place like in the current day, and it was it's definitely of its time. The internet was just starting, people were getting into the internet, and like DNA manipulation and things like that. It felt like it was of those first couple of weeks that kind of stuff was people were talking about it. This takes place like a few years in the future. It seems they don't really pinpoint when it takes place. People are still dressing like we do. Their dress is contemporary. But then the artificial intelligence machines, that's nothing like we have right now.
Speaking of attire, Anthony Hopkins, what he was wearing seemed like it could kind of be like a throwback to the type of dress a guy would be wearing back in the Old West.
Yeah.
And that's interesting that he's the creator of all this. So maybe he has some kind of an affection for the Old West and the kind of things that they would have worn and things like that. So I thought that was interesting.
So his character kind of seems like a John Hammond type character, correct?
Yeah.
A little bit. Maybe a little bit more of the science aspect of it. John Hammond seemed to be like a businessman, a big idea guy. But this Anthony Hopkins, he apparently is the designer of the first iteration of what Westworld was. So he's the guy who created all these robots. There's a fantastic scene where they go down to, it appeared to be a basement, a sub-level of where they stored a bunch of these robots. And he has a scene where he's talking to a guy who I think was playing like Wild Bill Hickok.
Yeah, and I recognize the actor. I can't place his name.
Yeah. He was in Alien Resurrection, and he was in The Crow.
Robin Hood, way back in the day.
Yeah, he has a super deep voice. He's a pretty good actor, but his voice is amazing. And he's doing this thing. I don't know if they manipulated it with computers or not, but you can tell he's an older version of these AI robots, and he's kind of got this jerky nature to him, like an audio animatronic would have. He'll have a conversation, and then he'll go to put a shot glass in his mouth, and he'll stop abruptly and hold in place, and then kind of have a twitch and a move.
And there were other actors who were, the robots that were kind of malfunctioning, and I believe they called them host.
A host, yes.
But they would, had that kind of jerky quality that you see in some like audio animatronics in, let's say, Disney World or something like that. So if that was him just doing that and it wasn't manipulated in post, then hats off to that guy, because that was really cool, really effective, really eerie.
Yeah, and Lewis Hertham did something kind of like that at the end of the episode also when he's talking to Anthony Hopkins, where he started to, he was going in and out of previous, I guess, computer programs that had been put into that AI. And really the level of acting you have to be able to, the prowess of an actor you have to be able to do that, to be able to go from character to character, change your accent, but then also act like a machine that is cycling through different programs. Like there were points where he would like open his mouth really rapidly and twitch his eyes around, and then he'd stop for a second, and then he'd go into another accent. You could tell that was the character kind of like changing files or something like that. And it was like, to ask that of an actor in a show is quite a lot, and to do that naked.
Yeah, to do that naked, and I mean he's really pulling at your heartstrings too. So it was a really good performance. He's a good actor. One thing you mentioned, Blade Runner earlier. Ed Harris's character kind of reminded me of Rutger Hauer in the sense that he knows that he's part of this like false environment, but he's sort of like he's like a step ahead in trying to figure it out and get answers on everything. And It kind of echoed that a little bit. That's the thing I'm most excited about, is to see where his story goes.
Yeah, yeah, and it seems like maybe possibly the Ed Harris character. We don't really know what he is yet. He could be a host. He could be a guest. So guests are human beings who are in Westworld, right? They've paid money. They go in and they have a fantasy situation set up where they can live out this fantasy of being a cowboy or something in the Wild Wild West.
That's right. It's kind of in the same way that the way that Disney World is thought out. Like, you are, as a guest, dropped into this story, this three-dimensional story that you can live out and everything. Well, hey, when the Pirates of the Caribbean breaks down, the pirates don't need the tourist. They do here.
Yeah, they
do in
here,
Westworld.
yeah. Or they have the potential to. I don't think we've really seen it yet, but I believe the end of this episode kind of leaves you with the idea that some of the programs are going to break that law of robotics that Isaac Asimov came up with, where they aren't able to harm a human being. Bishop and Alien says he is not able to, or by cause of action, harm a human being. So it looks like they're kind of probably going to go that route. But yeah, a good way to describe Westworld is it looks like an open world MMO, massive multiplayer online role playing game like World of Warcraft, but it's the real thing, and you're dropped into it as a guest. Walking around, you're able to, they'll set up scenarios like a bank robbery or a train heist or something like that. And as a guest who's paid thousands of dollars to go in, you're given free reign to do whatever you want. I think there's a couple of guys who just decide to go to the brothel and have sex with prostitutes, and they're talking about, well, this is the easy stuff here. We paid a lot of money to come and have sex with these robots, but if we really want to up to level 2, level 3, we have to go outside of the city, outside of the confines into the desert. And I think Anthony Hopkins made reference to a previous version of a horror-related story they had where there was a cult in the desert, and the Lewis Hertham robot was a member of that cult at one point, I believe. He was talking about.
I can't quite remember.
So I guess there's different scenarios you can involve yourself in. So if you're like, hey, we really want to take it up a level and increase the danger in the storyline, we're going to go out into the desert and track down this cult that's murdering people. But yeah. So anyway, yeah. So what was it that you liked about the show?
Almost the same things that I like about Jurassic Park, in the sense that you have this. It's an age-old, type of story that is it's so much fun and it works every time. In the sense that you've got this controlled thing, this environment or this person, whatever, and it's fail-safe, and it goes wrong. And everything goes wrong, and your unsinkable Titanic ends up sinking, and just the way that the characters have to make sense of the situation and get themselves out of it.
Yeah.
On top of the fact that this is so many different genres in one, and it works perfectly. A lot of people say that Raiders of the Lost Ark is the perfect movie because it has all of these genres, and every genre, and it tells its story through those absolutely flawlessly. And this was kind of a similar case. So yeah, that's the main thing that I liked about it.
So you like the setting and the potential for different stories they can tell within this idea.
And where the problems that have ensued now because of the Anthony Hopkins characters, him and Jeffrey Wright's sort of big-headedness, and how this is
playing
not
God.
Yeah, this is not a perfect system like you thought it was. And so I'm interested to see where that's going to go, how that problem's going to get tied up. What did you think about it?
I would have to say the same thing. I love the setting. I love the potential that they have to tell a bunch of different stories with this. It's HBO, so I know they're going to, really play up the lurid nature of what they can get away with, because they believe that certain people that tune into their channel do it because they can see stories they can't see on other TV stations. I don't know if you remember when Westworld was being created, there was some very questionable stuff that came out in some of the casting calls. So I'm a little worried that it's going to become just the sex and violence show, and I would really hope that they would stick to the big ideas show. The idea of whoever this Ed Harris character is supposed to be, this man in black, who seems to be a rogue computer program that is completely broken through everything he's supposed to do. He's going around killing other robots, because he has gained self-awareness to figure out, what's going on here. I really am interested in seeing what his story is. What's the philosophy behind this character? Is he just like Agent Smith in The Matrix Revolutions, where he stands for nothing but total chaos and destruction? Is he an agent of chaos going around just destroying everything? Does he want to destroy the system and see the whole system fail? Does he want to be the person who breaks through the system, finds Anthony Hopkins and kills him? Is he the creation that goes to destroy the creator? All that big stuff is that's stuff that I love.
Goes all the way back to Frankenstein.
Yeah.
And I said, the Rutger Hauer character in Blade Runner. And there's so many other cases of it, but this was such an interesting take because we've never seen it in like a sci-fi Western setting.
Right, yeah.
So, talking about an original story.
A very original idea, and
Yeah.
a very well done idea, too. The production value on the show. This show looks so
Amazing.
expensive.
Yeah,
it
it
looks like, I
does.
don't know how much of these sets were built from the ground up, but the casting's fantastic. The cast is huge. James Marsden, Anthony Hopkins, Jeffrey Wright, Louis Hertham, these fantastic actors. I know I'm forgetting a couple of people. Evan Rachel Wood. Yeah, she was fantastic too. And just I think all the effects on the show are amazing too. They have the Vitruvian man looking robotic skeleton that's coming out of the milk or whatever that they keep showing over and over.
So cool.
Yeah, I know that green screen technology and CGI has become a thing where you can just like hire a couple of kids out of college in After Effects and they can put this stuff together for you so quickly. But this show it looks flawless. It looks so beautiful. I love it.
It really does.
So I'm really excited to see where the story goes, to see where they really kind of push the technology, the filmmaking here. But from what I understand, I think it was Joanna Robinson, who is a journalist who writes for Vanity Fair, has a podcast called Storm of Spoilers with a couple of other guys, and I forget their names. I'm sorry. But I know that she was talking about she has seen the first 4 episodes. And Joanna was saying that in these 4 episodes, the story kind of jumps through a couple different characters. So I'm hoping that, given what happened on the show today, that we don't kind of lose that thread of narrative that sometimes they shoot a pilot and they try to make it as impressive as possible because they have to present it to the studio or the network to be like, hey, do you guys want to pay to make this show? And sometimes they really blow it all out in that first episode. And then they realize, like, okay, we have to extend the story. So the second couple of episodes might lack a little bit because they have to slow down and they have to tell a story.
I really hope that doesn't happen.
Yeah, I have a feeling it might, but I want to stick with this show the whole way because I have faith in that it'll be something good. And HBO, whenever they hit it out of the park, they really hit it out of the park. Game of Thrones is a cultural phenomenon. I loved Eastbound and Down is one of my favorite shows of all time. Vice Principals just finished this first season. It's great. The Night Of was varying different levels of quality there. I think I mostly liked the show, but it did not fulfill what the pilot episode was for me. And like I said, True Blood, the first 2 seasons of that, and The Sopranos I never got into, but people go on all day, all night talking about that show. So
another cool thing that was in it was Black Hole Sun.
Yeah.
That was performed on the honky-tonk
I recognized that,
piano.
and I didn't know what it was, and you turned to me, you know what song that is, right? And I'm like, I know, and you're like, it's Black Hole Sun.
By Soundgarden.
Yeah.
That was cool.
It was very cool. I think there might have been a couple of other songs
Yeah,
like
there was
that,
like
too.
House of the Rising Sun, I think.
so, yeah.
Yeah, which was arranged for different instruments. It was, that was interesting.
So yeah, I really loved the first episode of Westworld. I think if you are into Crichton or Jurassic Park, this is a different story. It's much more adult, much more mature. But I think it also kind of hits on a couple of different some themes that are in Jurassic Park as well. So if you like Jurassic Park, I think it's worth a check out. I think you and I are going to continue to watch it, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So maybe we'll have another episode down the season to just kind of check back in and see how things are going with it. But if you liked Jurassic Park, I think it's definitely worth your time to check out Westworld. I was really surprised with the level of quality of the show. So
Yeah, absolutely.
all right, great. Well, thank you so much for joining us for this little bonus episode of Jurassic Park Minute. Again, the show is going to drop on October 17th. If you have listened to Ghostbusters Minute, our other podcast where we chronicled and overanalyzed Ghostbusters Minute by Minute, Jurassic Park Minute is going to be slightly different in its presentation. What do I mean by that? Well, you have to tune in on October 17th to figure that out. But we're really looking forward to what this show is going to bring to the Movies by Minute podcast genre. And we think we've got some really cool stuff lined up with that. So join us back Monday, October 17th for the first episode of Jurassic Park Minute. And if we have time and the ability, we might even drop in another one of these little bonus episodes. So if you guys like this, let us know. Visit us online at JurassicParkMinute.com. We are also Facebook.com/Jurassic Park Minute. And visit us on Twitter at Jurassic Minute.
And give us a good review on iTunes.
All right, great. Well, we will see you on October 17th.
Jurassic Park Minute is a fan-supported podcast. If you like the podcast, then leave us a review on iTunes. You can contact us at JurassicParkMinute@gmail.com and visit us online at JurassicParkMinute.com, Facebook.com/Jurassic Park Minute, and Twitter.com/Jurassic Minute.